If you learned programming in college, and you learned, I mean, you could, but I mean, just broadly speaking, you learned, like Fortran, C, COBOL, Algol, whatever it was, Well, you probably don't, I mean, those are all great things. They're no less great than they were, but you probably have a lot more things now you deal with, like Ruby, you deal with Perl and PHP. You just think about the things you think about are like a different set of things. All the concepts are the same. Your knowledge was transferable, but not without looking at the book to say, well, how do you do an array in this language? That is the way you do your job, the skill you learn, have to be transliterated into some new context. I don't know how many Dead or Riley books you have in your library, but that's kind of the core sample of this pace of computer science change. Because everybody has a book on X window and motif, and there's like 4 books, and they're not even unwrapped. And then there's the book on the next thing, OpenStep, and the point is that's like a lifetime learning. That isn't like going to school and then you know it. Think about it; it's a big deal. If you have children, they won't be able to last from junior high school to high school and have the stuff make sense anymore. So that was last decade. Now this decade. So that pace of acceptance of new things is changing so incredibly, it's almost hard to explain it, and it's amazing that nobody notices it. That's the thing that's amazing to me. It's like I'm walking around, and everybody's happy, and I know that like they're all changing, and they can't tell. It's like it's weird. So how many people have an iPhone? Okay. Do you have the 3.0 software? 3.0, the new software? So we had like maybe 80%, 90% have the new software. Here's the deal. It's only been out like, say, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So if you have that, you've installed a new operating system on your device that's totally different, has different features, and not that it was a lifetime change, but maybe you didn't install a new OS on your computer in the last 4 weeks, right? Or on the mainframe at work in the last 4 weeks. You didn't. So if you think about the I got a phone, and so I got to update it today. Like people rushing to their computer to plug in their iPhone to update it. The reason it takes that long, so to speak, even though it's not very long, is because you got to plug it in. Apple designed their business around, you have their media selling hub that you plug the phone into. So you can't just upgrade your phone. You got to go find a PC and plug it in. It's got to be your PC. So if you're on the road, you can't do it. But like Android phones, they hear something over the air and they say, oh, new operating system. Can I upgrade myself? So they do that on the bus or whatever. So if you had an Android phone, they would all be updated. Okay. How many people have used Google Maps? Okay. Basically everybody. That's good. Okay. So that's okay. That's not my point. Here's the point. Have you noticed any big changes? No. Okay, that's good. Okay. It's only been around about 4 years. About 470 versions of Google Maps since the first version. Okay. We release a new version every Tuesday. Okay, and then we do special ones when there's problems, and special ones when there's events, like Katrina. We put a red Katrina button so you could click and see flooding. Okay, so there's been 470 different versions of Google Maps. Incrementally, they all add one little tiny feature, either one feature for you that you can use, or one feature for us that fixes something that's busted, or one feature that's sort of structurally good, like it's more efficient in some way or the other. But the point is that every time you use it, it's probably a different JavaScript. And every time you use it, it's almost certainly a different backend that you can't see. Okay, you didn't really use Google Maps at all. You used, a continuing, evolving, morphing, shape-changing, elastic thing that looks like the same enough that you don't really get nervous about that, but it's right at the border of that. And that's true for Google Maps. It's true for Microsoft Search and Maps. It's true for Yahoo. You go there to buy something, got some new feature now. So they say, oh, you're left-handed. Left-handed people like this book, or whatever. They have always adding things, right? It's not like the model of, well, there's XP, and there's 2000, there's XP, and then there's... It's not like a 3 or 4 year thing. It's a 3 or 4 hour thing almost, a 3 or 4 week thing for the slowest companies, and 3 or 4 day thing for Google. That's normal. I know that sounds abnormal, but just if you think that sounds abnormal, that means you're not part of the thing that's actually the curve of evolution that the survivors are on. And that's the thing I want to talk to you about. Okay? I mean, you don't have to forsake all things you know, but you have to realize that things are changing very quickly, and people expect that. Okay? They expect that, for example, if, say, I can't think of a good example, but let's say the mayor says open source is good, and I want to always use Proj 4 because that's just the way it is. And then so you say, well, we're going to put the Proj 4 open source library in Next decade, that's our product plan. Well, then that's a decade of lost sales, right? So like, things like that, like the other guy might have released it tomorrow with that. It's one of those kinds of things. So there's a true accelerating pace, not just of technical possibility. I'm not talking about that. That's always feverish and wild at colleges. This is a quarter of the people in a society includes some pretty generic people, some pretty non-technical people. There aren't a fourth of the people that like upgrading computers. There aren't a fourth of the people that like putting RAM in there. A fourth of the people means like everyday people, and that means that even those kinds of people expect something to be different, tomorrow or next week, and that's don't forget that. It's not just you, computer type people. It's like everyday people upgrade things all the time now, and they expect to be different every time. That's not the way it was. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, which is maybe even more shocking, but it goes with the first part. If things that are GIS really is two parts. There's organizing the data, marshaling it into beautiful maps or books or online or whatever. Then there's the collecting data. The collecting data part isn't much better, really, than it was when Thomas Jefferson did it to map out Virginia. You got a theodolite, and it's a smarter theodolite. It's got GPS on it. It's got the laser thing. But I mean, it's kind of like the same. Number of kilometers per day is not much different because you just got to walk around. It's not really tremendously different. There are other technologies, flying with LiDAR, doing remote sensing, that are pretty different. And so if we're going to have this incredible change, and the services offered by these products are going to actually be on that curve, which I believe actually is not just a curve of possibility, but a curve of absolute expectation. Things below that curve are things you won't see anymore. They'll just not be there anymore. It'll be very, very invisible, but if you think about brands you used to buy as a child at the grocery store, whatever that would be, I don't know what it would be, but like RC Cola or some kind of candy bar, Zagnut, or whatever it is, those things you go to the store, they're not there. They just kind of faded out, and there was the last 5 Goonie Birds, then 4, 3, 2, and then the Zonkers weren't on the shelf anymore, and then there just weren't any more Zonkers, and then that's it. And so here's what's going to happen. This is real quick. 5 years ago or so, we did this Google Earth community, Keyhole BBS. We had maybe 1 million people by now sharing stuff on a daily basis. I came here one time and said, we're going to put this in Google Maps so people can really use it. So we have called My Maps. It's easy. You just click on the thing, drag some markers. You can publish that as KML. We found this company, Panoramio, that collects geotag photos. We said, I bet there's something good to do with that. Let's buy them. We bought that. And I came here and said, there's going to be the future of geotag photos. You won't believe how good it's going to be. Everybody's like, well, I'm not too sure. That's not real data. We bought SketchUp and gave it away so people could model things. There's Paris. And, of course, things are a lot more dense than that, but that's some of the first cities that were done by users. We made a tool so that when people do searches and something's wrong, like you just search for Starbucks and it's on the wrong corner, you can just drag the marker over now in Google Maps. That's important. We have 100 million users a day. And when they find bad data from TeleAtlas or Axiom or Yellow Pages or whatever, they can say, oh, just drag it over and move it over there, and then it'll be in the new place. So we have 100 million scrubbing bubbles working on making the data better all the time. And that's pretty important. And then we said a lot of places we can't even buy data. Islands in the middle of the Pitcairn Island, TeleAtlas isn't driving their truck around the 4 roads. They're just ridiculous to go over there. So there's just no map. You can't get a map. The locals know where the roads are, and nobody else knows. But it's not good enough for me. I want the entire world. I want to know the roads in Pitcairn Island. So we built a tool called Google Map Maker. People can draw their own roads. So once again, I'm not selling it. I just want you to understand. So we built these tools based on the belief that I talked about 3 years ago, that the future would be user-collected data. So I'm talking about what that's morphed into now. So let's take a look at an example. We have people having mapping parties in countries where they don't have maps or available maps, or the Indian government has maps, but Indian people don't have maps, or Chinese government has maps, and people say, well, heck, this doesn't match with my GPS coordinates or whatever. So people get together, like a Boy Scout troop, like people gone down to the bingo night, and they make maps on their own. We don't pay them. We don't induce them to do it. They just do it.